Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this very special edition of the Collingwood Bigfooty podcast. Special in so much as we are joined by one of the absolute greats of the Collingwood Football Club, Mr. Scott Burns. Scotty, how are you today?
How you going, boys? We're good.
You having a good afternoon?
Yeah, it's been good. Big day. The training and match committee just said no now.
Pretty much a stock standard Thursday then, I guess, building up to a game day?
Yeah, well, I mean, Saturday game, so really 2 days out, so after final selection tonight, and Bucks will be on the phone notifying the boys who are in and who are out, and we'll get together tomorrow morning and go through our final meeting in preparation for the Melbourne game.
Looking forward to seeing the squad. Always one of the most exciting parts of the week for, I'm sure, the players and for the Collingwood faithful. Probably not the best time to actually catch you on the back of 5 losses. What's the mood like around the club at the moment?
Oh, look, it's been pretty positive still. I mean, we've had those games against some quality opposition, and we couldn't quite get over the line. And the doggies on the weekend have really come from nowhere from what they were 12 months ago. And geez, they're quick on the weekend and hard to stop. And we're a bit disappointed at times with how we used the ball going forward and then how we defended on a few occasions. But look, it's been hard, I guess. We've lost probably our 2 better forwards in Clokey and Billy, and obviously Broomhead not there as well. So that's been harder for our forward line. And Taylor Adams, I think, the last 2 weeks has been a pretty big loss as well. So that's hurt. But what we have had is the opportunity for a Darcy Moore to come in and he kicked 5 goals, and Greenwood slowly finding his feet from really having 10 months out of senior footy. He's played the last 2 weeks and finding a little bit of touch. So there were some opportunities, and there's been more opportunities from now on to the end of the season for a lot of blokes as well.
Absolutely. Good chance to press the claim. I want to touch really briefly on your playing career. I mentioned at the top of the show, you are a champion of our club. Played off in those 2 unsuccessful grand finals early on in the 2000s. What really stands out for you as a career highlight?
Oh, look, I guess coming from nowhere really in 02. We hadn't had much success. I got over in 95, and the club was definitely on the way down from 1990. And we bottomed out around that 99 time, and to get a few good draft picks and a few senior players as well as trade picks in Wakeland and Clement and Cal Steinfort, McKee that certainly played a role for us, Freeborn during that period as well, Malloy.
Yeah.
It was just you'd always seen the finals from afar, unfortunately, and all of a sudden in that 02 year we knocked off Port over there at Footy Park, and we're good enough to have the Crows measure at the that prelim final day. So that was probably the biggest highlight, that prelim final, having the opportunity to play in the grand final, and close but no cigar, in the sense that I think it was nearly halfway through the last we're still in front, or hit the front in that 02 grand final, but weren't quite good enough.
I remember reading somewhere that game against Port was actually your first final, 7 years into your AFL career.
Yeah.
So you kind of approached it almost as a veteran. And then you look back at the 2010 team where you had guys like Sidebottom and Beamsy have their first games in their first seasons. What sort of impact did that have on you? Was there a sense of anticipation coming into that first final series? Or
not really as such. I think because you probably are a little bit more mature, you're playing against these top teams and you know what to expect to a certain regard. It was one of those ones. It was, as a playing group, it was a lot of our first finals, because obviously Collingwood, like you said, hadn't played since '94. So, we're quite a relaxed group, really. We just knew we had a job to do, and we just went about doing it. And there wasn't too much that fazed us during that period.
You took on the mantle of captain in 2008, took over from the man who you coach with now in Bucks. And a fairly young group underneath you, but with a lot of promise. What was that year like for you, being the designated leader of the club?
Oh, look, it was nearly filling a hole in some regards. Bucks had been such a big figure and an icon of the club, obviously. So it would have been pretty big steps to fill, I would have thought, straight after Bucks had finished up. And what it did to it, knowing that I was 33 that last year, it certainly made the boys underneath more aware that in the next year or two there was going to have to be someone else as the captain. So we went through, and we'd done it anyway, but there were certainly players underneath that were going through leadership programs, and we're very prepared to be more stronger leaders, I guess, of the football club. So it certainly just gave 12 months, I guess, breathing space for some of those blokes who are probably still finding their way in AFL football to really see the opportunity to be a captain, and then I guess for the club as well to find out who it was actually going to be as well.
You're being a bit modest there, Burnsy. I think you had a bigger impact than all that. And I can certainly see some of your fingerprints on the young guys now at the club. But we'll get into your coaching career now. You went across and took an opportunity up at West Coast. What was it like separating yourself from Victoria and going all the way across to a brand new environment?
No, it was. The reason I went, there was a few reasons. I wanted to get out of Melbourne. Obviously, been at Collingwood for such a long time, it was. If you're in Melbourne, it's still pretty hard to get away from the Collingwood Football Club. And it was one of those cases where the kids, I had 2 kids at that stage, 4 and 1.5, and they weren't in school. So if we're ever going to go, it was about that time. And I was keen to see how an interstate club operated. Couldn't have been spoken of more highly West Coast by Mick Malthouse and Guy McKenna and those people that I was coached by through that latter part of my career. And the other thing I really weighed up was who was there. So we obviously had Bush and Peter Sumich, but Neil Danaher and Phil Walsh were going over as well. And I knew how highly regarded those 2 individuals were as well. And I thought if I want to learn the caper, then it's not a bad club to go to. It's not too often that you get just out of the game and you got 4 blokes like that to learn the ins and outs of how to coach successfully. Yeah,
absolutely. And obviously you had a fairly successful stint there, moulding that midfield that we're really seeing come into its own, especially this year, in the last couple of years as well, playing quite good football at the moment. You've been at the club now for the last 18 months or so. Has it changed a lot since you left?
Yeah, there's quite a number of changes. When I was still here, the BIS were on one side of the Lexus Centre at that point in time, and so when I came back, they were out. There was not one person on the coaching staff that was there when I left.
Yeah.
Including the fitness coach. So, Buck's down to all his assistants and development coaches. Obviously, Tarks Nancy I played with, of course, but new doctor might have been one of the physios there. So it was a completely different place. And I think the players, I might have played 5 years at West Coast. So the 6th year I got back, there was probably about a dozen players I played with. So it's only 25% of the list, and that's probably gone down to about 5 or 6 or 7 at the moment. So
yeah.
There were massive changes since I'd gone, and a lot of new players and a lot of new different ideas and thoughts and philosophies on how the game should be played and how the club should be operated away from football.
There's a certain perception about our head coach, about Bucks, from the outside looking in, on the type of person he's, the type of coach he is. What can you tell us about him and what he's like to work with?
No, he's great to work with. He's very thorough, always has been in what he's done, very professional. I saw that as a player, but he certainly takes that to his coaching. He basically doesn't want to get beaten by anything he doesn't know. Yep. He wants to know everything. So we've got obviously our scouts that are out there checking the opposition and all those sorts of things. So we're very thorough in knowing our opposition and what they want to do game day. He's very much a supportive coach. He's very strong in his ideas, of course, and he always has been, but very supportive and very embracing of any other different ideas. And he certainly did deep thinker where he'll go away and might not necessarily be right there right now, but he'll certainly go away and think about what you've said or ideas that you've had and come back next morning and have a chat to you about a few different things. So certainly enjoyable to work with. But I think we've got a group that's very enjoyable to work with as well, with Robert Harvey and Benny Hart and Stephen Grace. Like I said, Tarks and Pebs are there with the VFL and Dale Capping and Craig McRae. So it's a really strong, united coaching group, and different ages. We've all been around different clubs. There's a real different mix of where we've all been, and we certainly are pretty strong with our own ideas and thoughts, but we're very united as well.
I touched on it earlier. It certainly seems to me that watching the Collingwood midfield this year, it certainly has a bit of a Scott Burns type feel to it. Very tough, huge on effort, very much 1% focus and getting those desire indicators up. What sort of influence do you think you've had on that group as a whole, and what have you kind of brought to that midfield group that they're implementing now?
It's probably hard to answer that because I think there's a lot of things that you see now that have been a work in progress too since Bucks has taken over, and definitely since Harps was there as the midfield coach before me. Look, I guess, there's no doubt effort, intensity. Certainly have a big emphasis on clean and being able to, I guess, not be overawed by the contest, by the physical side of the game, and at the same time being calm and collected and knowing what we want to do out of those stoppages. Yeah, certainly that's been a work in progress, but I think we've taken yards in our quality of clearances. And last year we were pretty poor with scores from stoppage, but working closely with Steve Grace, we've been quite positive in that regard. We might be fourth or fifth score from stoppage team. We've dropped off a little bit the last few weeks, so that's pleasing. But defensively, we've still got to get a fair bit better with some things too, so we're working on that.
I want to set a bit of a scene for you. If you're sitting in the box and it's the Port Adelaide game and Port have come out raring to go, they've managed to knock through 5 of the first 6 goals, and they're well on top. What's the mood like in the box, and what sort of changes are being made to kind of circumvent that flow of play?
Yeah, well, such a broad question because it could come from anywhere. It might just be a couple of really bad mistakes that are unusual. It could be Penberry getting a kick smothered, or we may be caught off guard with Port Adelaide have done something different that they haven't done all year. Or it could be the one player being absolutely dominant for Port that needs to be shut down. So I mean, first thing first, you just need to stop the goal source. So it's you want to close up shop as quick as you can and just really get the boys focused and get them playing a game that by the time you get him in at quarter time, you can tell them where we've gone wrong, the reasons why Port got that start, and slowly make inroads, I guess, to get a few goals back in the next quarter. So the key thing is not to panic necessarily. I mean, you've always got things in place. A lot of the stuff that we would change up in a game should really be trained for throughout the pre-season and throughout the week. So there'll be a lot of times that the players have already gone to a setup or a structure when opposition have kicked a few goals. And we might be, there's quite a few times we call them at the same time and then we see it happen. So that shows a sign of leadership and development, I guess, with our group, because it is still very, very young. Saying that, there are times when you need to make individual positional changes because sometimes those younger players may be inconsistent at times. So you just got to watch for everything, really.
You did touch on there. We are quite young, but we are starting to see the fruits of that youth program and the youth influx coming through. Moore's 5 goals on the weekend. Jordan De Goey's really settled into the side. Who is it that you have your eye on in particular? Maybe someone we haven't seen yet that you expect really to step up and perhaps be our next breakout star? Yeah,
well, the two mainly that haven't played are Schamberg, who's probably had his 6 to 8 games back now from his knee, and Marsh, who's going really well at centre-half back in the VFL. That'd be the 2 guys that you wouldn't have seen at all. And the other one's Freeman. He's just starting to get up and running, but he's a long way off. He's missed all of last year, basically, and a fair bit of this year, so he still needs a fair bit of conditioning. But it's pleasing now that Schamberg is looking a lot sharper. His agility looks a lot better, and he's been thrown up quite a bit over the last few weeks, and is certainly close to getting a game. If it's not this week, it'll be very soon, you would hope. And we've been really impressed with the way that Jonathan Marsh has developed as well. He's gone really well, and it's just really, we've been quite happy with the way Brownie and Frosty have been going this year. So he's just got to bide his time and keep performing well. But that'd be the main 2 who are playing consistent football right now and may well be in the next 2 days or the next week or the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, not giving anything away, I understand. You mentioned the injuries before to Freeman, and you've suffered some injuries yourself in your career. What is it like for a player, their psyche and kind of their mental state, if to miss that much football and not get the chance to essentially do what they've been drafted to do, especially at such a young age? Yeah, well,
that's different because I certainly had my injuries. I think I did a hamstring 5 times one year, but I was 25 or 24 at that point in time. So I felt like I was an AFL footballer. I played, 80, 100 games, whatever I played up to that point in time. So you've got a young fella like Nate Freeman or even Schamberg, to the extent that Nathan's had his hamstrings and Schamberg's had his feet last year and then a knee at the end of last year. They haven't proven themselves. So that still have doubts. That still have hopes and dreams and aspirations of being a really good AFL footballer. So that'd be a little bit of a question mark in the back of my head, because you don't know. And until you get thrown in the driver's seat, until you're playing AFL football, you want to play, but it takes a while to belong at AFL football. So at the moment, they've just got to physically get back to where they were pre their injuries, and play some really strong, consistent football at VFL level. So when that Wush always said at West Coast that he's very, very reluctant to bring any young player in just on potential. Generally, he's found in his career that you want to bring him in when they've had really solid football underneath for at least a month. And generally, they give a good account of themselves when they come in.
I sometimes wonder what the psychological component is. I mean, how willing you are to almost go at full pace. Someone like Freeman, who's obviously done his hamstring, who's very much a speed athlete, but to hit, how much confidence you then have to develop in your body to be able to push yourself to those limits again. I imagine that has an effect on the player as well.
Well, there's no doubt it takes time because he didn't have the operation at last year, but he was having hassles, and then got going this year, and there was just a bit of fluid around it that they didn't quite pick up, so they cleared that up. And it's just really been the last few weeks where he's really opened up a training. You can see him doing his run-throughs and his strides, and he's joined in a few drills. You can really see that speed that he showed in his first 2 or 3 months training with us after he just got drafted. So there'd be a lot of those demons that would be out of his head right now. But, of course, you're going to get to game day. You're going to stretch out a bit more. So he needs to condition himself a little bit more over the next few weeks, and it'd be really good for him and beneficial for everyone if he can get 3, 4, 5, 6 games in at the end of this season going into next pre-season.
In your mind, as a club now, what are the sorts of things we need to improve upon in the next few weeks? Because we're still very much in the contention for finals. What are the sorts of things that we're looking at now to improve and sort of build a nice run towards September potentially this year?
Yeah, look, it's interesting when you get a younger group. So, I say younger group. I think when we played Hawthorn, we had 10 blokes, 50 games and under. And I went through that West Coast period where 2010 we wouldn't spoon, and everyone seems to have forgotten that 11 and 12 they basically top 4 with that young team, and they went missing for a year or two. But those blokes now, when you look at Maston, Shuey, Gaff, Nat Nui, Schofield, even Kennedy was just finding his feet. He just come over from Carlton when I first got over there. That Hearn was only really probably a 40, 50 game player then as well. It's amazing the difference you see in their physical appearance from 21, 22 to 24, 5, 6.
Yeah.
And you can really see that now with the West Coast boys. So you've got to be very, very careful, I believe, when you've got a younger group to keep chopping and changing. You've got to stay to the task, stay the journey that you're on, but make sure that you're continually developing those individuals in the areas they need to get better at. You don't want to just completely change things from a game structural philosophy based on, at the end of the day, blokes making a poor decision or not quite kicking it as well because they are fatigued or missing a tackle because they look tired because they've only had 2 pre-seasons instead of 6 or 7. So it's a matter of us getting as much work into them as we can and focusing on their areas that they need to improve, but certainly encouraging their strengths. So that's a journey we're on, and I think we've been pretty good at this stage. And you've seen the rewards of some of those younger players in the first half of the year. We just like to finish this season off pretty good in the back half.
Well, we certainly hope so. I certainly hope we can make finals. You've been really generous with your time. I just got one more question for you. Do you still hold aspirations to hold a senior position before you finish up coaching? Is that something that you still aspire to?
Yeah, I don't think they'll ever change. I think I've always had that ambition. It's quite funny. As a player, I was one of those, and Bucks would have been the same. You're studying every move of what the senior coach is saying and what you're doing and picking up things that you think, geez, he's done that well, or geez, I reckon you've got doubts as a senior coach of the things you're saying. And look, it's just been always one of those things that I've had a passion for footy, and I certainly love the coaching aspect of it. And it'd certainly be a great challenge, wouldn't it? It's not the easiest job in the world, but down the track at some stage, if it presents, I'd certainly like to have a crack at it.
It's always struck me as such a difficult job, just because there's so much scrutiny involved in something like that, and so much optimism that comes with it. But it sounds like you're pretty driven and committed to it. So I think you'll get there at some point, mate.
No, quite interesting actually. With Phil Walsh at West Coast, when he first came, he was funny. He was quite reluctant to be a senior coach, but he reckons it's no, you can't win.
Yeah,
as senior coaches, you can't win because, like he said, even that 04 grand final he was a part of with Choco and Port Adelaide as a senior assistant, it was only that period that he's really enjoyed footy because he's back on the horse and trying to look for different avenues to get better. So it's there's no doubt it's can be overbearing at times, but I guess the rewards of improvement with the young men on and off the field is is something that's great to be a part of.
Well, it's been amazing having you on, and thank you for being so generous with your time. And hopefully we get to see a big win this weekend over the D's and push on to September.
No worries. Thanks, Mike.
Cheers, Scotty. Have a good one.